Hello, my name is Rachel. I'm a public relations specialist with Bajillion Agency in Topeka. Today, I'm going to walk you through a step-by-step guide to building your own PR plan and your own crisis PR plan. So let's get started. Let's say your organization has a problem. Your destination has low visibility among the audience whose attention that you want. Well, the answer is public relations as one way for you to attract attention, visibility, and consequently, visitors. But let's back up. What is public relations? Public relations is a strategic communication process that builds mutually beneficial relationships between organizations and their publics, according to the Public Relations Society of America. But what's the real-world definition? PR is about telling stories, specifically about getting gatekeepers who share stories for a living, such as journalists, bloggers, influencers, etc., to tell your story to their audience. The purpose of getting your story out into the world through PR is to go from low visibility to new credibility and awareness through earned media from third parties. In conjunction with other marketing work, PR helps build your brand. It's a long-term strategy, and doing it doesn't take a lot of money, but doing it well does take time. You have to be committed and tenacious. This is the chance to build the story about your organization that you want to tell. You are not limited by the perceptions of others and what they say about you. Media outlets are always looking for good stories. Don't assume they already know your story. Be proud of it and be willing to push for it to be told. But let's back up and start where all good stories do, from the beginning. Here's how to start getting good PR. First, you have to find your story. How can you take what your destination has to offer and share it in a way that's going to grab attention? There are 8 different angles you can use to discover and construct a great story worth telling. These are called news values, and they're what journalists use to determine newsworthy stories. So the first news value is impact, and that is about how this is going to affect the lives of readers of this media outlet. The next is timeliness, and timeliness addresses the question, why are you telling me this now? What timely angle is there to this story? The third news value is prominence. And prominence relates to coverage of a person who's either living or is in history who is widely known. So prominent Kansans include Dwight D. Eisenhower and Amelia Earhart. So if you have a story that is somehow connected to prominent Kansans, then that is going to be worth telling. The fourth news value is proximity, and that's about why does this matter to my audience? Why is this local or something that's going to affect them because it's close by? The fifth news value is the bizarre. Is there anything unexpected or interesting about the way that your story can be told that is going to produce a bizarre angle? The sixth is conflict. And of course, we know that news always covers conflict. So the ideas behind this news value is what are the different sides of the issue and what are the arguments? The next news value is currency, and currency is about something that is trending. Currency means that an idea's time has come. So if you remember a few years ago, the Ice Bucket Challenge is a perfect example of currency that was very widely visible, and more value is attributed to stories that are in the spotlight or have public concern rather than issues or topics that people may have forgotten about or couldn't care less about right now. Stories always come and go. So finally, our 8th news value is human interest. And human interest is feature stories that discuss people, a person, or even a pet in an emotional way. It presents the people at the center of their stories and their problems, concerns, or achievements in a way that brings interest or sympathy or motivation in the reader or viewer. And human interest stories are always going to be more evergreen. They're not going to have a timeliness aspect to them. They're always going to be something that's valuable to be told. So find a story angle about your destination that includes one of these news values, and bonus if they fit 2 or more of them. So tips for getting started pitching to the gatekeepers, the journalists, the bloggers, and influencers. First, you're going to want to research. Determine the audience that you want to reach. Is it people in a certain location? Is it a certain demographic, such as families with young kids or seniors? Or is it more of a general demographic that you want to reach? Next, you want to target. So identify a list of the best publications or outlets who are maybe interested in your story and have an audience of the people that you've determined you want to reach. So get a list of writers or outlets that cover your subject. And get a sense of them so you can personalize your pitch. Make sure that your story angle is something that they haven't covered before. Next, you're going to want to personalize. Look at the social media feeds of the writer or reporter that you're reaching out to. See what they've produced in the past. Use the information to personalize your pitch email. Even saying something as simple as, "I love that feature you did on Kansas sunflower fields, and I want to clue you in on another great Kansas destination that your readers will love." Next, send your pitch. Address the email to them directly. Tell them you look forward to hearing back from them, and if not, you'll follow up. And yes, you probably will have to follow up. If they haven't responded after 4 days or a week, forward them the email again, but add another new tidbit about your story angle that's going to pique their interest. Now, keep it short and be direct that you want them to cover your story because it's going to be interesting for their audience. So, some tips for making sure that your pitch email is successful. You're going to want to pay attention to the details. Always spell their name correctly and double check it. It's good advice for any situation, but especially in this case when journalism places such a high value on correct name spellings. And make sure that you keep it short. Editors, reporters, bloggers, they don't have time to read 600 words. Keep it concise. And that's why you should always lead with your best. Share the most interesting part of your story high up in the pitch email. You could even lead with it. So for an example, "My name is Rachel, I work with Bajillion Agency, and I want to share a possible feature story idea about a secret society of pet owners who used to meet in our agency's building." Get their attention to get their interest. Do their work for them. As you're going through the process, put yourself in the position of the reporter or writer. Think of what would be interesting to their readers. Always keep at the forefront of your mind, what's the story? Why should they care? Why should they care now? Make sure that they know that you came to them with an exclusive chance to tell the story. And one way to do their work for them is to identify compelling visuals. Depending on who you're pitching, think about what photos or video footage could contain. So what's available to help tell the story? Ask yourself what makes it interesting. People like looking at beautiful pictures and images of interesting things that help tell the story. And of course, keep trying. If a writer isn't interested in your pitch, offer them another angle and then another. How about this part of the story? Don't you think your readers would be interested in this angle? And keep telling them why it's relevant to their audience. But make sure to celebrate when you finally get the earned media that you're after. Share it on your social media channels, place a link to it on your website, and share it with your audience over email. Earned media is truly earned, so give yourself a pat on the back. Now let's shift gears into another side of PR that's extremely important, and that is crisis PR planning. Crisis PR is needed if a situation concerning your organization damages trust, which affects the confidence that people have in your organization, reputation, which affects the beliefs that people have about your organization, or if a situation damages health, lives, or safety, and that is self-explanatory. And sometimes a crisis situation can include all three. In a crisis situation, you can expect that there's going to be lack of information, but plenty of confusion. You're never going to have all the information you want, and part of the difficulty is separating truth from speculation or even outright falsehoods. You can expect that there's going to be rapid changes, new information, new factors, new pressures that keep coming at you. Often it comes as a result of intense public scrutiny. Everyone these days has a platform: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, etc. And everyone loves giving an opinion and sharing with their audience, so be prepared. Along with that is going to come intensifying media attention. So this is how you can be prepared. Build your crisis PR plan when you're not in a crisis. And these are the elements of what you should include in a crisis PR plan. First, you're going to want to identify your risks. You can never predict the future, but you can identify certain risks that are present because of your organization's unique attributes. For example, if someone got hurt participating in your attractions activities, that would probably be a crisis PR situation. As you're building your crisis PR plan, you're going to want to make sure that your organization can speak with one voice. Determine ahead of time who is speaking and who will be leading and steering the message. Sometimes the person speaking and the person leading and steering the message can be the same, but other times it's a team of people. In a crisis situation, anyone who is not authorized to speak to the media should direct questions to the designated spokesperson. You're going to want to set the right tone. In a crisis situation, you want to be in control, proactive, transparent, compassionate, and truthful. Any official statements or other messaging should always use a voice that conveys trust, calm, and compassion. Remember, the public often wants to pinpoint the villain in any given situation, so don't give them any reason to believe it's your organization. In your PR plan, as you're building it, it may be helpful to include draft news releases that you can use to work with and get your message tone the way you want it when you're not under pressure. As you're building your plan, make sure that you always include direction to stick to the facts. Fact gathering and verification should precede any communication in a crisis situation. Official statements should only use verified facts because you're never going to want to speculate. If you don't know during a crisis situation, it's okay to say the situation is continuing to develop and you'll have more updates in the future. Sometimes an initial message can be as simple as, we're working with state and local officials on this developing situation and we'll release more information as soon as it's available. This shows that you're both aware and in control of the situation, and it helps manage expectations for future communication. The final element as you're building your crisis PR plan is identify the stakeholders that you need to communicate in a crisis situation. Internal stakeholder examples would include employees, volunteers, members of your board of directors, etc. Meanwhile, external stakeholders would include your customers, suppliers, service providers, vendors, any regulatory authorities, and of course the media. You don't want your stakeholders hearing about what's going on the evening news. Your stakeholder communication should always be direct and immediate. Think about what are their needs, what are their primary concerns and priorities, and how will their reputation be affected by your crisis. Some do's and don'ts of crisis PR. So first, do take responsibility. Apologize if needed, use an empathy statement, and talk about how you're going to prevent this situation from happening again in the future. But don't say no comment. No comment is for the movies, but it doesn't work in real life. It just makes you look like you're trying to hide something. Do set the record straight. Tell the facts and keep repeating them as often as necessary when new information comes to light. But don't be a turtle. If it's a crisis that fits the definition of a crisis, don't hide out and hope it blows over. Take control, tell the truth, and take steps to rectify the situation. Do respond quickly. Don't let the narrative get away from you. Give what you know and add to it as needed. Finally, don't be a jerk. Instead, be the opposite of a jerk. Start with empathy, demonstrate caring, and include facts in a professional tone. The goal of crisis PR planning is to set your organization up to communicate in a timely and accurate manner that maintains your reputation and reduces harm. And this is where having PR as a part of your marketing plan can be a benefit to you in a crisis situation. If you've built relationships and trust with local media, you will have goodwill and credibility as a foundation already in place if a crisis situation emerges. This is why you should make regular PR a part of your marketing plan. As we've said, it's free, it's simple, and you can do it yourself. Just keep learning and working at it. So there you have it. I highly encourage you to start including PR in your marketing plan. It's free and easy, and it just takes a bit of time, planning, and determination. If you need help building your own PR plan or your own crisis PR plan, shoot me an email, rachel.h@bajillion.agency. Thanks for watching.